What makes a hero? Is it the suit? The fights? The ability to fly into danger and punch problems until they stop? Or is it something quieter? Something that doesn't make headlines or trend on social media? Something that happens in workshops at 4 in the morning when you're staring at your life's work and wondering if any of it actually matters? Every invention carries weight. Every creation comes with consequences. And when you're the person who can build things that save lives or end them, sometimes in the same breath, the question isn't whether you're powerful enough. It's whether you're brave enough to stop building weapons and start building futures. This is Tony Stark's story. Not the one about aliens and Avengers. The one about a man trying to outrun his father's shadow while carrying the weight of his own mistakes. The one about discovering that being a hero might mean putting down the armor and picking up a different kind of responsibility. The weight of tomorrow. Part 1. I am the sum of my father's legacy and my own mistakes, wrapped in a shell of red and gold that weighs more than most people will ever know. The workshop is quiet at 3:47 a.m., which means something's wrong. Usually by this hour, I've got Zeppelin or Sabbath rattling the reinforced walls, drowning out the part of my brain that won't shut up about worst-case scenarios and failure points. Tonight, though, the silence feels appropriate. Almost reverent. I'm sitting on the floor, actual floor, not even a chair, with my back against the wall and a half-empty bottle of sparkling water beside me. Not scotch, water. Pepper would be proud, if she knew, which she won't, because I'm not ready for the speech about how sitting in the dark workshop at 4 in the morning isn't actually healthy, even if I'm technically sober. The Mark 51 hovers on the assembly platform in front of me, 70% complete. Its skeletal frame glinting under the safety lights. I've been staring at it for the past hour, watching the way the ambient light catches the edges of the repulsor housing, and thinking about my dad. Howard Stark was a lot of things. Brilliant, driven, emotionally unavailable in ways that would make a therapist's retirement fund very comfortable. He built weapons that changed the world, then tried to build a better world to make up for it, and somewhere in between he had a kid he didn't quite know what to do with. I get it now. The weight of invention. The responsibility that comes with being able to build things that can save lives or end them, sometimes in the same breath. My phone buzzes. I ignore it. It buzzes again, then a third time. Jarvis, who's having an emergency at dark 30? It appears to be Colonel Rhodes, sir. He sent 3 messages in the past 90 seconds. The most recent reads, and I quote, "I know you're awake. Pick up the phone." I smile despite myself. Tell him I'm in a meeting. He's responded, sir. With who? Your ego. Okay, that's fair. I grab my phone, the screen's blue light harsh in the dim workshop. What's up, Rhodey? Don't what's up me. Happy called, said you've been in the workshop for 16 hours straight. His voice carries that particular mix of concern and exasperation he reserves specifically for my most self-destructive tendencies. Happy's a snitch. Happy's worried. I'm worried. Pepper's worried, but she's in Tokyo, so she made me the designated intervention caller. I lean my head back against the wall, feeling the cool concrete through my t-shirt. I'm fine. Working on the new suit, making progress. Very healthy, very normal behavior. The fact that you have to qualify it as healthy and normal means it's neither. I'm not drinking. The words come out more defensive than I intend, sharper than necessary. There's a pause. When Rhodey speaks again, his voice is softer, the tone he uses when he's actually concerned and not just annoyed. I know. That's not what this is about. You want to tell me what's actually going on? I look at the Mark 51, at the exposed arc reactor housing that mirrors the one in my chest, at the intricate web of circuits and power conduits that represent hundreds of hours of work. Do you ever think about legacy? Like what we're leaving behind? Sometimes, usually when you make me existential at 4 in the morning. I'm serious. So am I. What brought this on? I stand up, my knees protesting the movement. I'm not old. I refuse to be old. But I'm not 20 anymore. And my body keeps a detailed record of every time I've been thrown through a building, every crash landing, every fight that pushed my armor and body to their limits. I was going through some old files, found some of my dad's notes, early designs for the arc reactor, the original plans for what would eventually become this. I tap my chest, where the reactor hums its constant rhythm, the soundtrack of my survival. And I realized he was working on it when he was younger than I am now. And he never saw it work. He had the idea, the vision, but he didn't have the technology. The materials science wasn't there. The miniaturization wasn't possible. I did. I built what he dreamed about, except I built it to save my own life in a cave in Afghanistan, using scraps and desperation and the absolute certainty that I was going to die if I didn't figure it out. I start pacing, unable to stand still, the nervous energy that's kept me going for 16 hours still crackling through my system. Everything I've made, every suit, every innovation, I'm either cleaning up messes he started or fixing problems I created. I'm running in circles, Rhodey. Very fast, very expensive circles, but circles all the same. You saved New York. After fighting aliens that came through a portal opened by a guy whose mind I helped mess up, using technology that wouldn't exist if I hadn't been weapons manufacturer of the year for a decade straight. The bitterness in my voice surprises even me. You're not responsible for Loki's choices. No, but I'm responsible for mine. I stop in front of the suit, reaching out to touch the cold metal of the chest plate. The Jericho missile killed hundreds of people before I shut down weapons manufacturing. Hundreds, Rhodey. I watched that demonstration video so many times, smiling like an idiot about payload dispersal and kill radius optimization. The drones in Sokovia. That was Ultron. That I built. That I brought into existence because I thought I was smart enough to build a suit of armor around the world. Because I thought I could prevent every possible threat if I just built the right system. My hand clenches into a fist against the metal. I created an AI that tried to commit genocide. How do you come back from that? Tony, I'm not spiraling, I interrupt, though I'm not entirely sure that's true. I'm just thinking about what it means to build things, about the difference between creation and responsibility, about whether anything I make will ever add up to more good than harm. Rhodey is quiet for a long moment, and I can picture him in his apartment in D.C., probably sitting on his couch in the dark, trying to figure out which version of the intervention speech will actually get through to me this time. You want my honest opinion? When have you ever waited for permission? Your dad built weapons and dreamed about clean energy. You built weapons, stopped building weapons, and then built yourself into a weapon to protect people. That's not running in circles. That's growth. Messy, complicated, very you growth, but growth. Evolution. I press my palm against the arc reactor in my chest, feeling its pulse, steady and constant. What if it's not enough? What if at the end of all this, when someone tallies up everything I've done, the ledger is still red? What if the bad outweighs the good? Then you keep working. That's what you do. That's what you've always done. You don't give up. You don't quit. You build something better, and you try again. He pauses, and I hear the sound of movement, probably him getting up, pacing in his own way. Get some sleep, Tony. The existential dread will still be there in the morning, I promise. Promise? Guaranteed. I'll even bring coffee. The good stuff, not that motor oil you drink. My coffee is fine. Your coffee could strip paint. I'll be there at 9. Try to get at least 4 hours, okay? After we hang up, I stand there for another few minutes, staring at the unfinished suit. It's beautiful in its way. An evolution of everything I've learned, every mistake I've made, every fight I've survived. It can do things no previous suit could do. It's faster, stronger, more efficient. And I realize I don't want to build it anymore. Not because I don't need it. There will always be threats, always be emergencies, always be moments when someone needs to fly into danger wearing a tin can. But because I'm tired of that being the only thing I build. I grab my tablet and pull up a new file. Jarvis, start a new project folder, codename, Foundation. Certainly, sir. What is the nature of this project? I'm not sure yet, but I'm tired of building suits to fight the next threat. I want to build something that means there are fewer threats to begin with. Something that lasts. Something that matters in ways that don't require repulsors and missiles. An ambitious goal, sir. Shall I compile research on infrastructure development and sustainable technology? Yeah. And Jarvis, pull up everything we have on my father's non-weapons research. The stuff he worked on in the 70s and 80s. The projects that never got funding because they weren't profitable or militarily useful. Very good, sir. Might I suggest you get some rest before beginning this new endeavor? You might suggest it. Doesn't mean I'll listen. I am aware, sir. It's why I've already notified Colonel Rhodes that you're still awake. Traitor. I prefer concerned colleague, sir. I work through the rest of the night and into the morning, sketching ideas, running simulations, discarding most of them. The sun starts filtering through the workshop's high windows, turning the space from shadows and safety lights into something golden and possible. And I'm still going, fueled by coffee and stubbornness, and something that might actually be hope. What emerges isn't a single product or invention. It's a framework, a system, a way of thinking about technology that prioritizes prevention over reaction, infrastructure over intervention, clean energy distribution networks that could bring reliable power to regions that have never had it, water purification systems small enough and cheap enough to deploy at scale, educational technology that works offline, that doesn't require expensive infrastructure, that can function in places where the internet is a luxury. It's not flashy, it won't make headlines. Tony Stark isn't going to trend on social media for building water filters. But it might actually matter. It might actually change things in ways that last beyond the next crisis, the next alien invasion, the next disaster. I'm so focused on the work that I don't notice when the workshop door opens, don't register the footsteps until Happy's voice cuts through my concentration. Boss, you look terrible. I glance up from the tablet. Happy's standing in the doorway with his arms crossed, wearing his designated "Tony's making bad life choices" expression. It's a look I'm intimately familiar with. Good morning to you too, sunshine. It's 1 in the afternoon. Rhodey's been here since 9. He's upstairs eating all your food and complaining about how you stood him up. I didn't stand him up. I've been right here. You didn't answer the door, or your phone, or Jarvis's intercom announcements. So yeah, you stood him up. Happy moves closer, peering at the tablet screen. What are you working on? Something new. Something different. I turn the tablet so he can see the schematics, the concept drawings, the spreadsheets full of numbers that represent potential impact measured in lives changed rather than threats neutralized. What do you think? Happy studies the screen for a long moment, his expression shifting from annoyed to thoughtful. I think you should probably eat something and sleep for more than 20 minutes, but I also think this looks important. What is it? Infrastructure, systems, the boring stuff that actually keeps the world running. I stand up, my back protesting the movement after too many hours hunched over work. I'm tired of only building things that fight. I want to build things that prevent the need for fighting in the first place. That's surprisingly mature for you. I contain multitudes. You contain half the coffee in Manhattan and a concerning lack of actual food. Happy nods toward the door. Come on, Rhodey's waiting, and you know how he gets when you ignore him. Part 2. Rhodey's in my kitchen, and he's made himself completely at home, which is both expected and slightly annoying. He's found the good coffee, the beans I save for special occasions, and he's made enough for a small army. There's also food, bagels, cream cheese, fruit, and what looks suspiciously like the protein shakes Pepper keeps trying to get me to drink. You raided my kitchen. Someone has to make sure you eat. Sit. He points at the bar stool with the authority of someone who's been ordering me around since MIT. Eat. Then we'll talk about whatever kept you up all night. I sit, mostly because arguing takes energy I don't have, and grab a bagel. I wasn't up all night. Happy says you've been in the workshop since yesterday morning. That's almost 30 hours, Tony. I took a break around 4 a.m., had a whole bottle of water. Very responsible. Water's not food. It's hydration. That counts. Rhodey slides a plate toward me with a loaded bagel and one of Pepper's protein shakes. Eat. Drink. Then tell me about Foundation. I take a bite of the bagel to buy time, trying to organize thoughts that have been racing for the past 30 hours into something coherent. You know how my dad spent his whole life building weapons and dreaming about a better tomorrow? Yeah. I'm tired of dreaming. I want to actually build tomorrow. Not the flying cars and jetpacks tomorrow, the functional infrastructure tomorrow, the tomorrow where fewer people die from preventable causes because they don't have access to clean water or reliable power or basic medical technology. Rhodey leans against the counter, coffee mug in hand, watching me with that look he gets when he's trying to figure out if I'm having a breakthrough or a breakdown. Okay, that's good. That's actually really good, Tony. What brought this on? I've been thinking about legacy, about what I'm leaving behind, and I realized that for all the suits I've built, for all the threats I've stopped, I haven't actually built anything that makes the world fundamentally better. I've just been playing defense, reacting to crises instead of preventing them. You've saved millions of lives. In spectacular fashion, yeah. But what about the people who don't need saving from aliens or killer robots? What about the people who just need clean water or electricity or access to information? I take another bite. Swallow. There are places in the world where people don't have reliable power, where kids can't go to school because there's no infrastructure, where preventable diseases kill thousands because they don't have access to basic medical technology, and I've been too busy building suits to do anything about it. So Foundation is your way of fixing that. Foundation is my way of trying. I don't know if I can fix it, but I can build systems that help. And maybe, if I do it right, it'll matter more than any suit I've ever built. Rhodey's quiet for a moment, drinking his coffee, thinking. You know what this means, right? What? You're going to have to work with other people. Scientists, engineers, governments, NGOs. You're going to have to collaborate and compromise and probably sit through a lot of very boring meetings. I know. And you're going to have to be patient. Infrastructure doesn't get built overnight. This isn't like building a suit in your workshop where you can iterate quickly and test immediately. This is long-term work, years, maybe decades of work. I know that too. And you're still going to do it? I meet his eyes. Yeah, I'm still going to do it. A slow smile spreads across Rhodey's face. The real one, not the professional one he uses at Pentagon meetings. Good. Because if anyone can actually pull this off, it's you. Just promise me you'll actually sleep occasionally and eat more than bagels. I make no promises. Of course not. That would be too reasonable. He refills his coffee mug. So, what's the first step? I pull out my tablet, calling up the files I've been working on. Research partnerships. I can't do this alone. I need experts in renewable energy, water systems, educational technology, public health. I need people who've actually worked on infrastructure projects in developing regions. People who understand the practical challenges, not just the engineering. You're going to need funding. I've got funding. Stark Industries has more money than we know what to do with. The question is how to deploy it effectively, how to make sure we're building things that actually help instead of just making me feel better about my privilege. Rhodey leans over the tablet, scanning through my notes. This is ambitious, really ambitious. You're talking about building integrated systems across multiple sectors in dozens of countries. I know. That's why I need help. I pull up another file, this one full of names and credentials. I've been researching experts. MIT has a renewable energy lab that's doing interesting work. Stanford has a water purification research group. Columbia's got people focused on education technology for low-resource environments. I need to bring them together, pool expertise, figure out what's actually possible. You're going to need more than university partnerships. You'll need government cooperation, local community involvement, infrastructure specialists, supply chain experts. I know, I have a list. It's a very long list. I take a drink of the protein shake, grimacing at the taste. Why does Pepper think these are good? Because they're healthy, and you need nutrients. They taste like punishment. Drink it anyway. He taps the tablet screen. This is good work, Tony. Really good. But you need to be realistic about timelines, and you need to be prepared for failure. Not every project is going to work. Some of these initiatives might fail spectacularly. I've failed spectacularly before. At least this time no one will try to kill me with my own technology. Probably. Probably? There are people who benefit from the status quo, companies that profit from inefficient systems, governments that use resource control as political leverage. You start building infrastructure that democratizes access to power and water and information, you're going to make enemies. I hadn't thought about that, which is stupid, because of course I should have thought about that. Everything I touch eventually becomes complicated and political and dangerous. So what do? You build it anyway, but you build it smart. You build coalitions. You work with local communities, not just for them. You make sure this isn't Tony Stark swooping in to save the day, but Tony Stark providing tools and resources that people can use to save themselves. He straightens up. And you accept that it's going to be messy and imperfect and frustrating. But you do it anyway, because it matters. I nod slowly, absorbing this. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You've just been too busy being a genius to notice. 3 days later, I'm in a coffee shop in Queens, which is unusual for several reasons. First, I generally don't do coffee shops. I have people who bring me coffee, excellent coffee, precisely calibrated to my preferences. I don't stand in line with everyone else. Pretending my baseball cap and sunglasses make me invisible when everyone in a 5-block radius has seen my face on magazine covers and news broadcasts. Second, Queens is not my usual territory. I'm a Manhattan guy, with occasional excursions to the compound upstate when Pepper insists I need to reconnect with the team or participate in group activities or whatever euphemism she's using for mandatory Avengers bonding time. But Peter texted yesterday asking if we could talk, and when a 16-year-old kid who's juggling school, Spider-Man duties, and the weight of expectations I know too well asks for your time, you show up, even if it means coffee shops in Queens. He's already at a corner table when I arrive, hunched over his phone, his leg bouncing at a frequency that suggests either anxiety or he's had way too much caffeine already. Probably both. The kid seems to run on a mixture of nervous energy and genuine enthusiasm that I find both exhausting and oddly endearing. Parker. He jumps, nearly knocking over his cup, coffee sloshing dangerously close to the rim. Mr. Stark, hi, thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you'd I know you're busy, and I know Queens isn't really your area. Breathe, kid. I slide into the seat across from him, pulling off my sunglasses. The baseball cap stays on. You said it was important. Right. Yeah. He runs a hand through his hair, making it stick up at odd angles. His aunt's going to have opinions about that later. So, I've been thinking about something you said once, about responsibility. I say a lot of things about responsibility. Usually while people are yelling at me about consequences and collateral damage and whether I consulted anyone before making unilateral decisions. No, this was different. This was after... He lowers his voice, glancing around to make sure no one's paying attention to us. After the vulture thing. You said that having the ability to help means you have an obligation to help, but you also have an obligation to make sure you're actually helping and not just making yourself feel better. That good intentions don't always lead to good outcomes. I don't remember saying that, but it sounds like something I would say during one of my more philosophical moments, probably while dealing with the aftermath of whatever chaos Peter had stumbled into. Okay, and? And I think I messed up. He looks miserable, his shoulders hunched, his usual enthusiasm dampened by something that looks a lot like guilt. There's this guy, Mr. Delmar. He runs the bodega near my apartment. Really nice guy. Always gives me free churros. Always asks about Aunt May. Last week there was a robbery. 3 guys, armed with actual guns. I was coming home from patrol and I heard the alarm. Sounds like good timing. I thought so too. I stopped them, webbed them up for the cops. Everyone was safe. No one got hurt. Mr. Delmar was shaken up but okay. I felt good about it, you know? Like I actually helped for once instead of just making things worse. He's pulling at a thread on his jacket, not meeting my eyes. Except now, Mr. Delmar's shop is closed, because his insurance rates went up after the robbery, and he can't afford to keep it open anymore. And I keep thinking, if I had handled it differently, if I had stopped them before they got inside, if I had been faster, if I hadn't caused so much damage to the store during the fight. Stop! I hold up a hand, recognizing the spiral of self-recrimination because I've lived in that spiral, built a house there, know every corner of its architecture. First rule of being a hero, you can't save everyone from everything. Second rule, you definitely can't save everyone from insurance companies. Those guys are the real supervillains. He doesn't laugh. But I could have done more. I should have done more. Could you? Or are you just torturing yourself with hypotheticals? I lean forward, elbows on the table. You stopped armed robbers. No one got hurt. That's a win, Peter. That's literally the definition of a successful intervention. The fact that there were downstream consequences you couldn't predict doesn't make it your fault. Then why does it feel like I failed? And there it is. The question I've been asking myself for years, in 100 different contexts. In the mirror at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. In the workshop when I'm building the next solution to the last problem I created. Why does success feel like failure? Why does doing good never feel like enough? Because you're paying attention, I say finally. Because you care about the collateral damage, the downstream effects, the things that happen after you swing away into the sunset feeling like a hero. Most people don't. Most heroes don't. They stop the bad guy, save the day, and move on to the next crisis without looking back at the mess they left behind. You do. Yeah, and look where it's gotten me. Insomnia, trust issues, and a workshop full of suits designed to fix problems that haven't happened yet. I'm not sure I'm the best role model for healthy coping mechanisms. He studies me for a moment, and I'm reminded uncomfortably that the kid is smarter than he has any right to be, more perceptive than most adults I know. Is that what the new project is? Jarvis mentioned you've been working on something called Foundation. Jarvis has a big mouth. Jarvis is concerned about your sleep schedule. He sent me a text at 2 a.m. asking if I could convince you to rest. Jarvis is an AI and doesn't need sleep, so his opinion on the subject is void. I sigh, taking a sip of my coffee. It's terrible, overbrewed and bitter, but I drink it anyway. Foundation is an idea. Maybe a terrible idea. I'm trying to build systems that prevent problems instead of just responding to them. Clean energy infrastructure, water purification, educational technology, medical systems. The stuff that doesn't make you an Avenger but might actually change lives in lasting ways. Peter's eyes light up, the guilt and self-doubt momentarily replaced by genuine excitement. That's amazing. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's not just about stopping the bad guys, it's about making sure there are fewer bad guys in the first place because people have what they need, because they're not desperate or angry or pushed into corners. Easy, Karl Marx. It's not quite that revolutionary. I'm still a capitalist. I'm just trying to be a slightly more ethical one. But you see it, right? The bigger picture? The way everything connects? I think about my father, sketching arc reactor designs decades before the technology existed to build them, dreaming of clean energy while building weapons of mass destruction. I think about myself in that cave, building the first suit not because I wanted to be a hero, but because I wanted to live, wanted to survive long enough to see another day. I think about every decision I've made since, every suit, every system, every attempt to be better than the sum of my mistakes. Yeah, I say. I see it. The question is whether I can actually build it. Whether I can make something that matters beyond my own ego and guilt complex. You built a functioning arc reactor in a cave with a box of scraps. Technically, it was a very well-supplied cave. Terrorists are surprisingly well-funded these days, but point taken. Peter leans back, some of the tension leaving his shoulders, though the worry lines around his eyes don't completely disappear. So, what do I do about Mr. Delmar? I can't just ignore it. I can't pretend it's not my fault. What do you want to do? I want to help. Actually help. Not just feel like I helped. Not just put a band-aid on a bigger problem. I pull out my phone, opening my contacts, scrolling to my assistant's number. Give me his information. Full name, address, business details. I'll have my people look into his insurance situation, see if there's anything we can do. Stark Industries has a small business recovery fund for situations exactly like this. You have a fund for bodega owners whose shops get robbed while Spider-Man is stopping criminals? I have a fund for collateral damage from superhero activity. We started it after the Chitauri invasion, expanded it after Sokovia. Turns out, saving the world is expensive for the people who live in it. Buildings get damaged, businesses get disrupted, lives get upended. The least I can do is try to make it right. Peter stares at me, and for a moment, I see something in his expression that makes me uncomfortable. Respect, admiration, the kind of hero worship I've never felt I deserved. That's really cool, Mr. Stark. Don't spread it around. I have a reputation to maintain as a self-centered billionaire with more money than sense. But I'm smiling, and he's smiling, and for a moment, the weight doesn't feel quite so heavy. We talk for another hour, and it's good. About school, about balancing responsibilities, about the new web formula he's been developing in his chemistry class when he's supposed to be paying attention to the actual lesson plan. He shows me his notes, and they're good, genuinely innovative, the kind of thinking that suggests he won't just be Spider-Man forever. He'll be something more. You're going to do great things, Peter, I tell him as we're leaving, stepping out into the Queen's afternoon, the street busy with people going about their lives, unaware that Spider-Man and Iron Man are standing on their sidewalk, having a heart-to-heart. Just try not to let them eat you alive in the process. Is that what happened to you? I consider lying. Consider giving him the sanitized version, the one where I'm fine and everything is under control and the nightmares don't wake me up most nights. where the arc reactor in my chest is just a cool piece of technology and not a constant reminder of everything I've survived and everyone I've failed. I'm still figuring that out, I say instead, but I'm trying. That counts for something, right? Yeah, he says quietly. It does. Part 3. The gala is Pepper's idea, which means I can't get out of it no matter how many excuses I generate or how creatively I try to avoid the entire concept of putting on a tuxedo and smiling at rich people for 3 hours. It's for the Foundation Initiative, she explains, fixing my bow tie with the practiced efficiency of someone who's been dealing with my inability to dress myself for years. Her hands are steady, confident, and I find myself wondering, not for the first time, how she manages to deal with me on a daily basis without losing her mind. Your new pet project, the one you've been obsessing over for the past 2 weeks. I don't obsess. I focus intensely with purpose and direction. You sent me 47 emails between midnight and 3 a.m. last night, all about different approaches to distributed energy grids in sub-Saharan Africa. That's obsession, Tony. That's passion. It's both, and you're going to this gala, and you're going to smile and shake hands and convince very rich people to fund your passion project so it can become something more than theoretical frameworks and midnight emails. She steps back, looking me over with a critical eye that misses nothing. There, you look almost respectable. I adjust my cufflinks, expensive things that belonged to my father, one of the few possessions of his I kept. I hate these things. You know I hate these things. I know. Everyone wants to talk about the suits, about the Avengers, about the next alien invasion or robot uprising or whatever disaster is coming next. They want Iron Man, not Tony Stark trying to build water purification systems. So change the conversation. She picks up her clutch, checks her lipstick in the mirror. She looks stunning, as always, in an emerald dress that probably costs more than most people's cars. You're good at that. When you want to be. When you're not actively trying to sabotage yourself. I don't sabotage myself. You absolutely do. But tonight, you're going to put that energy into something productive. You're going to charm and persuade and make people believe in Foundation because you believe in it. Can you do that? I look at myself in the mirror. Tuxedo, styled hair, the carefully constructed image of Tony Stark that I've been performing for decades. Behind it all, the arc reactor glows faintly through my shirt, a reminder of everything I am and everything I've survived. Yeah, I say. I can do that. The gala is at the Stark Industries headquarters in Manhattan, in the main atrium that Pepper had redesigned specifically for events like this. It's all glass and steel and carefully controlled lighting, modern architecture that speaks to progress and innovation, and the future we're supposedly building. The new arc reactor prototype is displayed like a piece of art in the center of the space, elevated on a platform, spotlit dramatically. It's smaller than previous generations, more efficient, capable of producing enough clean energy to power a small town indefinitely. It's beautiful in its way, proof of concept that the technology works, that what I'm proposing isn't just theoretical nonsense. I hate the entire scene immediately. Not the space. Pepper has excellent taste, and the atrium genuinely is impressive. But the crowd, the noise, the weight of expectations and small talk and performing the role of Tony Stark, genius billionaire philanthropist for an audience that expects quips and charm and the carefully crafted persona I've been maintaining since I was old enough to understand what public relations meant. I've been doing this my whole life, and it never gets easier. If anything, it gets harder, the mask getting heavier each year, the performance more exhausting. Mr. Stark! A reporter materializes in front of me before I've made it 10 feet into the room, appearing with the inevitability of death and taxes. She's young, eager, holding a recording device like a weapon. Can you comment on the rumors about a new Iron Man suit? Sources say you've been working on the Mark 51 for weeks. I can comment that you should check your sources because I'm working on something much more interesting than another suit, though I appreciate the continued interest in my work. The Foundation Initiative? Can you tell us more about that? I grab a glass of sparkling water from a passing waiter, not champagne, even though I want champagne, even though the bottle is right there and one glass wouldn't hurt except it would. It always does. And I learned that lesson the hard way. The Foundation Initiative is about building infrastructure, clean energy, water purification, educational technology, medical systems. The boring stuff that actually changes lives but doesn't make for good action sequences. So you're retiring from superhero work? I'm diversifying. Turns out you can punch bad guys and build a better world. Multitasking. It's a revolutionary concept. I smile, the practiced one that doesn't reach my eyes. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have donors to charm, and my handler gets cranky when I avoid my responsibilities. I escape before she can ask follow-up questions, weaving through the crowd toward the reactor display. A small group has gathered around it, and I catch fragments of conversation, technical discussions, speculation about applications, the usual mix of genuine interest and people trying to sound smart to impress each other. "It's elegant," a woman's voice says, and I turn to see someone I don't recognize. Mid-40s, maybe, dressed in a simple black dress that probably costs more than most people's cars, but doesn't advertise it. She's studying the reactor with the kind of focus that suggests actual understanding, not just appreciation of shiny technology. The miniaturization alone is remarkable. How did you solve the heat dissipation problem at this scale? Carefully, and with a lot of trial and error and at least 3 fires that Jarvis will never let me forget. I move closer, intrigued despite myself. "You sound like you know what you're looking at." "Dr. Sarah Chen. I run a renewable energy lab at MIT. Your father and I corresponded years ago before he passed. He consulted with our team on some theoretical work." She extends her hand, and I shake it, noting the firm grip, the directness of her gaze. The world narrows to just her words. "You knew Howard?" "Not well, but he shared some early arc reactor concepts with me when I was still a graduate student, barely 25 and terrified of everything. He wanted outside perspectives, fresh eyes on problems he'd been staring at for decades. He was generous with his time, for someone so brilliant and busy." She smiles, but it's sad around the edges, touched by loss. "He was brilliant, frustrating sometimes. He had very specific ideas about how things should work and didn't always listen to alternative approaches. But brilliant. That's the most accurate description of Howard Stark I've ever heard. He talked about you in his letters. He was proud of you. Worried, certainly, but proud. I don't know what to do with that information. My father and I had a complicated relationship, to put it mildly. Years of distance and disappointment and things left unsaid until it was too late to say them. The idea that he was proud of me, that he talked about me to strangers, to colleagues, feels surreal. Like a story about someone else's father. What did he say? Dr. Chen considers her words carefully, looking at the reactor rather than at me, giving me space to process. He said you had a gift for seeing solutions no one else could see, that you approached problems from unexpected angles, made connections others missed. But he worried you'd burn yourself out trying to solve every problem at once, that you'd take on too much, feel responsible for too much, carry weight you didn't need to carry. Well, he wasn't wrong about that. The words come out more bitter than I intend. He also said, and I remember this very clearly because it struck me at the time, that you were going to change the world. He just hoped you'd be kind to yourself in the process, that you'd give yourself permission to be human, to make mistakes, to not have all the answers. I feel something crack in my chest, some wall I've been holding up for longer than I care to admit, built brick by brick over years of distance and disappointment and complicated grief for a man I never quite understood and who never quite understood me. I'm not sure he ever managed that himself. No, she agrees quietly. He didn't. He was brilliant and driven and utterly incapable of forgiving himself for his mistakes, which is probably why he hoped you would be different, why he wanted better for you than he managed for himself. We stand there for a moment in comfortable silence, two people connected by a ghost, by the legacy of a man who built weapons and dreamed of peace, who changed the world and died before seeing his greatest visions realized. The arc reactor, she says finally, gesturing to the display. He would have loved this, not just because you built it, but because you built it for the right reasons. Clean energy, accessible to everyone. That's what he dreamed about in those letters. Democratized power, literally and figuratively. I built the first one to keep shrapnel from shredding my heart, not exactly altruistic origins. But you kept building, kept improving, kept asking, what else can this do? How else can this help? That's the part that matters. Not the origin story, but what you chose to do with it afterward. We talk for another 20 minutes, and it's good. Real conversation, not networking, not performance. She tells me about MIT's renewable energy research, about projects they're working on in wind and solar and hydroelectric systems, about the practical challenges of deploying new technology in regions without reliable infrastructure, without educated maintenance crews, without the economic systems to support long-term sustainability. It's exactly the kind of expertise I need, the kind of real-world experience that can turn theoretical frameworks into actual functioning systems. I'd like to collaborate, she says finally. The Foundation initiative could benefit from university partnerships, real research, peer review, the kind of rigor that makes sure we're not just building impressive technology, but useful technology. Technology that actually works in the real world, not just in laboratory conditions. I'll have my people send over the details. We can set up meetings, formalize partnerships, work out the logistics. I'd rather work with you directly, if you're open to it. The vision for this has to come from someone who understands both the technology and the stakes, someone who's thought deeply about what we're trying to accomplish and why it matters. That's you, Mr. Stark, not your people, you. I should say no. I should delegate this to someone on my team, someone who has time and energy and isn't already juggling 17 projects and the occasional alien invasion and the complex trauma of being Iron Man. But I look at the reactor display, at the physical manifestation of my father's dreams and my execution, and I think about Peter asking how to actually help. I think about legacy and responsibility and what it means to build something that lasts beyond the next crisis. Yeah, I hear myself say. Let's do it. Direct collaboration. No intermediaries unless absolutely necessary. Good. She pulls out a business card, hands it to me. Call me next week. We'll start planning. After she walks away, I stand there for a few more minutes, turning the business card over in my fingers, feeling something shift in my chest. Not fixed. I'm not naive enough to think one conversation or one project can undo years of complicated feelings about my father and my choices and what I'm leaving behind. But hopeful. Like maybe this can work. Like maybe I can build something that matters in ways that go beyond stopping the next threat. You look thoughtful. Rhodey's voice comes from behind me. That's either very good or very dangerous. Sometimes both. Dr. Chen knew my father, corresponded with him about arc reactor research. And she said he was proud of me, that he thought I'd change the world. I slipped the business card into my pocket. I don't know what to do with that information. You could accept it, believe it, let it be true without overcomplicating it. That doesn't sound like me at all. No, Rhodey agrees, moving to stand beside me, looking at the reactor. But maybe it could be. Maybe that's part of Foundation too. Building a different relationship with your past, with your father's legacy, with what you're capable of when you're not just reacting to threats. When did this become therapy? The moment you started talking about feelings, which, for the record, I'm proud of. Growth, Tony. You're having growth. I'm having regrets about inviting you to this gala. You didn't invite me, Pepper did, because she knew you'd need someone to keep you grounded and stop you from hiding in the bathroom for half the night. I wasn't planning to hide in the bathroom. The workshop then, the parking garage. Wherever you go when crowds get overwhelming and expectations feel like too much weight. He's not wrong. I was absolutely planning an escape route, had already scouted the exits, calculated how long I could reasonably stay before Pepper would hunt me down. Come on, Rhodey says, let's make the rounds, charm some donors, make Foundation real instead of just theoretical. You can do this. Can I? You flew a nuclear missile through a wormhole into space. You can handle a few hours of small talk with rich people. One of those scenarios involved potential death. This involves sustained social interaction. I'm not sure which is worse. Fake it till you make it, Tony. That's literally been your entire life strategy. He's right about that too. So I straighten my shoulders, put on the smile, and step into the crowd. Part 4. The next 3 hours are a blur of handshakes and elevator pitches and carefully calibrated charm. I talk about clean energy with tech billionaires, about water purification with philanthropists, about educational technology with venture capitalists looking for the next big thing. Some of them get it immediately, understand the scope, the ambition, the potential impact. Others need convincing, need to see the profit angle, need to understand how this benefits them beyond just feeling good about helping people. I'm good at this, better than I should be, given how much I hate it. But I've been performing Tony Stark for decades, and I know all the moves, all the lines, All the ways to make people believe in something because I believe in it. By the time the crowd starts thinning, I've secured commitments totaling close to $50 million. Not enough to fund everything I want to do, but enough to start. Enough to build prototypes, run pilot programs, prove the concept works. Pepper finds me on the balcony, taking a break from the noise and the lights and the performance. "You did good in there," she says, leaning against the railing beside me. "Really good. You had them eating out of your hand." I'm very charming when I want to be. You're very charming when you believe in something. That's the difference. She's quiet for a moment, looking out over the Manhattan skyline. "Foundation matters to you. I can see it. Everyone can see it. Is that bad?" "No, it's good. It's really good, Tony. You're engaged in something that isn't just about fighting or reacting or carrying guilt. You're building something positive, something hopeful. Don't jinx it." "I'm not jinxing anything. I'm acknowledging progress. You're allowed to have that. You're allowed to build something that isn't about redemption or paying debts or fixing mistakes." I want to argue, want to point out that Foundation absolutely is about redemption and fixing mistakes and trying to do better than I've done. But maybe she's right. Maybe it can be more than that. Maybe it can be about actually creating something good instead of just preventing something bad. "Thank you," I say finally, "for organizing this, for believing in it, for putting up with me. Someone has to." She squeezes my hand. "Come on, let's go home. You've earned rest." 3 weeks later, I'm back in the workshop, but it's different this time. The Mark 51 is finished, polished, and gleaming on its platform. It's a beautiful piece of engineering, maybe my best work yet. Enhanced repulsors, improved flight systems, better power efficiency, nanotechnology integration that allows for faster deployment and more versatile configurations. It can do things the earlier suits could only dream of. And I haven't worn it once. Not because I don't need it. There will always be threats, always be emergencies, always be moments when someone needs to fly into danger wearing a tin can. But because I've been too busy with Foundation to even think about suiting up. Instead, my workshop is covered in prototypes, energy systems, water purification units, educational tablets designed to work in areas without reliable power grids, with solar charging and offline educational content. Medical diagnostic tools that can function without extensive infrastructure or trained technicians. None of it is sexy. None of it will make headlines. But all of it is real. Dr. Chen's team sends progress reports twice a week, detailed analyses of energy needs in different regions, feasibility studies for various deployment models, cost-benefit analyses that make my head hurt, but prove the concepts are sound. Peter stops by after school sometimes, full of ideas and enthusiasm and that specific kind of optimism only teenagers can maintain. He's been researching educational initiatives, has ideas about how to integrate Spider-Man-themed content into learning modules to make them more engaging for kids. It's adorable and slightly ridiculous and actually kind of brilliant. Pepper approves budgets and keeps me organized and occasionally reminds me to eat actual food instead of coffee and protein bars. Happy drops by with sandwiches and complaints about how I'm making his job harder by actually leaving the tower for meetings and site visits. Rhodey calls every few days to check in, to make sure I'm sleeping, to remind me that taking care of myself is part of the work. I'm building something, not a suit, not a weapon, not armor against the next threat. Something that might actually last, something my father would have built if he'd lived long enough to see past the next war, the next conflict, the next disaster. It's slow work, frustrating work. There are setbacks and failures and moments when I want to give up and go back to what I know, what I'm good at, what feels safe because I understand the parameters. But I don't. Because Rhodey was right. Fear of failure isn't a good enough reason to stop trying. And because somewhere, in a way I can't quite articulate but feel in my bones, this matters more than any suit I've ever built. My phone buzzes. Message from Peter. "Mr. Delmar reopened his shop. He says thank you. Also, he saved you some churros." I smile, type back, "Tell him I'll stop by this weekend." Another message comes through, this one from Dr. Chen. Preliminary results from the Kenya pilot program are promising. Solar grid is performing above expectations. Water purification units need adjustment but working. Can we schedule a call? I respond, "Tomorrow morning. I'll bring coffee and data." Then I return to my work, to the slow, unglamorous process of building a better world. One system at a time. One innovation at a time. One choice at a time to be more than the sum of my father's legacy and my own mistakes. The arc reactor in my chest pulses steadily, keeping me alive, reminding me of everything I've survived and everything I've built, and everything I still have left to do. 6 months later, I'm standing in a village in rural Kenya, and I'm watching my technology work. The solar grid is up and running, providing reliable electricity for the first time in this community's history. Children are using the educational tablets, their faces lit up with the glow of learning. The water purification system is producing clean water, safe water, water that won't make people sick. It's not perfect. There have been problems, technical issues, cultural misunderstandings, logistical challenges. But it's working. It's actually working. A woman approaches me, older, clearly a community leader. She speaks through a translator, thanking me for the technology, for the partnership, for listening to what the community needed, instead of just imposing solutions. This will change things, she says. For my grandchildren, for their children, education, health, opportunity. You have given us tools to build our own future. I don't know what to say. I've received thanks before, from people I've saved, governments I've protected, colleagues I've worked with, but this feels different, more real, more lasting. It's your future, I manage finally. We just provided the tools, you're doing the work. She smiles, understanding more than I said. You could have built weapons, more suits to fight. Instead, you built this. That is wisdom. After she leaves, I stand there for a long time, watching the community come alive with possibility. Rhodey's beside me, having insisted on coming along for security and support, and because he's a good friend who knows when I need someone to ground me. You did it, he says quietly. You actually did it. We did it. Team effort. Don't deflect. This was your vision, your determination, your willingness to build something different. He claps me on the shoulder. Your dad would be proud. Maybe. I look at the solar panels glinting in the African sun, at the children gathered around tablets, at the women collecting clean water. I think I'm proud. That's new. Good. You should be. Part 5. Back in New York, Foundation is expanding faster than I anticipated. Dr. Chen's team has identified 12 more communities that could benefit from similar systems. Other universities want to partner. NGOs are reaching out. Governments are expressing interest. It's overwhelming in the best possible way. I'm in a board meeting, something I usually avoid like the plague, presenting the 6-month results. Pepper's beside me, backing me up with financial data and strategic planning. The board is skeptical, as always, questioning the profit margin, the return on investment, the business case. Foundation isn't about profit, I say, probably more sharply than I should. It's about infrastructure, about building systems that last, about creating opportunity in places that have been ignored by the global economy because they're not immediately profitable. That's very noble, Mr. Stark, one of the board members says, his tone suggesting he thinks nobility and business don't mix. But Stark Industries is a for-profit corporation. We have shareholders, obligations, fiduciary responsibilities. And we're meeting all of them. Foundation is fully funded through my personal wealth and directed donations. It's not touching shareholder profits, but it is using Stark Industries' resources, our manufacturing, our supply chains, our expertise, to do good in the world. That's not just noble, it's smart. It builds goodwill, creates markets for our technology, and frankly, it's the right thing to do. The right thing doesn't always translate to good business. Then maybe we need to redefine good business. I stand up, suddenly done with the whole conversation. My father built weapons and called it innovation. I'm building infrastructure and calling it the future. Foundation stays, it grows, and if any of you have a problem with that, there's the door. The room is silent. Pepper's trying not to smile. The board members are looking at each other, clearly not sure how to respond to being dismissed in their own meeting. Finally, one of them, Martinez, who's been with the company since before I was born, speaks up. The Kenya results are impressive. If we can replicate that success, if we can prove the model works at scale, I think there's value here. Not just moral value, but strategic value. Stark Industries could lead a new sector of humanitarian technology. Others nod, slowly, seeing the angle. Seeing how this could work, how it could benefit the company while also doing good. Thank you, Martinez, Pepper says smoothly, taking over before I can say something that undermines the progress. We'll have comprehensive reports on your desks by end of week. This meeting is adjourned. Outside the boardroom, she grabs my arm. That was risky. That was necessary. You can't threaten the board every time they question your decisions. Watch me. Tony. I'm tired of pretending that profit is the only thing that matters. I'm tired of justifying doing good as if it's some radical concept. If they can't see the value in Foundation beyond dollar signs, then they're not the right people to guide this company into the future. She's quiet for a moment, studying me. You've changed. Is that bad? No, it's good. Really good. You're fighting for something that matters to you. You're setting boundaries. You're refusing to compromise on your values. She smiles. I'm proud of you. Everyone keeps saying that. It's weird. Get used to it. You're doing good work. That night, I'm in the workshop, working on the next iteration of the water purification system. The Kenya pilot program showed some issues with salt content in certain regions, and I'm trying to design a solution that doesn't require complex maintenance or expensive parts. Sir, Jarvis interrupts, you have a visitor. Spider-Man is requesting entry. Send him down. Peter arrives a minute later, still in costume but with his mask off, looking exhausted. There's a cut on his cheek, fresh, and his suit has scorch marks. Rough night? Bank robbery. They had some kind of energy weapons. I don't know where they got them. I stopped them. But he sits down heavily on one of the stools. Mr. Delmar's shop got damaged again. Not destroyed, but the windows got blown out, some of the shelving got wrecked. And I just keep thinking, why does this keep happening? Why is it always the good people, the innocent people, who pay the price? I set down the prototype, giving him my full attention. Because crime doesn't care about innocence. And because you can't prevent every consequence of every fight, no matter how hard you try. I should have fought them somewhere else. I should have led them away from the neighborhood. Peter, stop! I move closer, sitting across from him. You're 16 years old. You stopped armed criminals. You saved lives. The fact that there was property damage doesn't make you a failure. But Foundation, what you're doing, that's about preventing damage. That's about making it so people don't have to suffer consequences they didn't choose. Foundation is about infrastructure, not crime prevention. They're related, but not the same. And even with Foundation, even if we build perfect systems, there will still be bad people doing bad things. There will still be fights and damage and consequences. What Foundation does is make sure those consequences don't destroy people's lives, that they have support, resources, the ability to rebuild. So what do? You keep fighting, you keep trying, and you accept that you can't save everyone from everything, but that doesn't mean you stop trying to save who you can. He's quiet for a moment, processing. The cut on your cheek needs attention. It's fine. It's not fine. Come here. I've got a first aid kit. I clean the wound, apply antibacterial ointment, put on a bandage. It's strange, playing caretaker, but also oddly comfortable. Like this is what mentorship looks like. Not just training and advice, but basic care, making sure the kid takes care of himself. Mr. Delmar, Peter says as I'm finishing. The insurance thing, thank you. Whatever your people did, it worked. He's getting better coverage now, lower rates. He wanted me to tell you thank you. Just doing what should have been done in the first place. People shouldn't be punished for being victims of crime. Can I help? With Foundation? I know I'm just a kid, and I'm not an engineer like you, but I want to help. I want to do more than just punch bad guys. I consider this. Peter's smart, enthusiastic, genuinely wants to make a difference. And having a younger perspective, someone who understands what it's like to be on the ground, could be valuable. Yeah, I say. Yeah, you can help. We're developing educational content for the tablets, making learning engaging for kids in different cultural contexts. You could help with that. Test materials, provide feedback, maybe even create some content. What do you think? His face lights up. Really? You mean it? I don't say things I don't mean. Well, sometimes I do, but not about this. You're smart, Peter. You have perspective I don't have. Use it. Thank you, Mr. Stark. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Now go home. Get some sleep. Fighting crime is a marathon, not a sprint. After he leaves, I return to my work, but I'm smiling. This is what legacy looks like, I think. Not just the technology I build, but the people I help, the opportunities I create, the difference I make in ways both large and small. A year after that night in the workshop at 3:47 a.m., Foundation has deployed systems in 37 communities across 14 countries. We've provided clean energy to over 200,000 people. Clean water to nearly 500,000. Educational technology to 50,000 children who previously had limited or no access to formal education. The numbers are impressive, but what matters more are the stories. The girl in rural India, who's the first in her family to learn to read. The community in Guatemala that's using reliable electricity to start small businesses. The village in Tanzania where infant mortality has dropped by 40% since clean water became available. These aren't abstract statistics. Their lives changed, futures created, possibilities that didn't exist before. I'm in the workshop. Where else would I be? When Rhodey calls. Turn on the news, he says without preamble. Why? Did I accidentally start another international incident? Just turn it on, Channel 7. I pull up the feed on one of my screens and I see myself. Or rather, I see footage of foundation projects, interviews with community members, analysis of the impact we're having. The headline reads, Tony Stark's Foundation Initiative, redefining what it means to be a hero. Oh no, I mutter. Oh yes, Rhodey says, clearly amused. You're trending. People are calling you the hero the world actually needs. There are think pieces about how you're more effective building infrastructure than fighting aliens. One headline calls you the world's most impactful philanthropist since Gates and Buffett. That's ridiculous. We've barely started. There's so much more to do. And you'll do it. But Tony, take a moment. Appreciate what you've already accomplished. You set out to build something that matters, and you did. You're changing lives. That's not nothing. After we hang up, I sit there for a long time, watching the news coverage, reading the articles, seeing my work, our work, recognized and celebrated. It feels strange. Good strange, but strange. I'm used to headlines about Iron Man, about threats stopped and disasters averted. Not about infrastructure and education and clean water. But maybe this is what being a hero actually looks like. Not the suit, not the fights, not the dramatic saves. Just the slow, persistent work of making the world a little bit better. One community at a time, one system at a time, one life at a time. My phone buzzes. Message from Pepper, saw the news, told you it would matter. Proud of you. Message from Peter. Mr. Stark, you're famous for good reasons now. This is so cool. Message from Dr. Chen. Well-deserved recognition. Let's keep building. I smile, and for once, I let myself feel it. Pride, accomplishment, hope. The arc reactor in my chest pulses steadily, and I think about my father, about his dreams and his failures, about the legacy he left and the one I'm building. I am Iron Man. I always will be. The suit is there when I need it, when the world needs it, when there are threats that require someone to fly into danger and punch problems until they stop. But I'm also Tony Stark, engineer, inventor, builder of futures. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. I look at the Mark 51, gleaming on its platform, untouched for months. Then I look at the prototypes covering my workspace, at the projects in development, at the plans for expansion. I know which matters more. I return to work, to the unglamorous process of changing the world. One innovation at a time, one community at a time, one choice at a time to be better than I was yesterday. The weight is still there. Legacy, responsibility, the accumulated mistakes of a complicated life. But it's different now. Lighter, more purposeful. I'm building tomorrow. Not the flying cars and jetpacks tomorrow, but the tomorrow where fewer people suffer from problems we have the technology to solve. And that, I realize, is exactly what my father hoped I would do.